Okay, everyone, welcome to Human Needs. I'm Mark Packard, and we're here to discuss how we can align humanity towards a shared goal so that we can avoid human extinction. Because, and for that, we need to stop the never-ending race to sacrifice a long-term common good for the short-term personal advantage in our competition for jobs, clients, and resources. And we do that mostly by raising awareness about fundamental, emotional, and human needs. Sorry about that. So today I'm really excited to have Colin R Turner as our first guest. He is a very important person in this movement. So this is we are kind of this podcast and the Pro-Socialize Foundation is the result of years of work being part of a global movement that is kind of a decentralized movement that Colin has been a very important leader of it since I've pretty much discovered it. And he's been creating excellent content, an excellent public speaker, written books, and also what really makes him stand out from other leaders in this movement is that he's been creating the alternative solutions for creating this new paradigm. And so it's great to have you on, Colin.
Wonderful to be here, Mark. Thanks for asking me on, and congratulations on the new podcast, Human Needs. I think it's an excellent angle, and good luck with it.
Thanks. So, yes, and well, yeah, I don't know if we've actually talked about this way of seeing it before. So Colin and I work regularly together. We've been partners for years. We've worked on on sharebay.org, which is Colin is the dev of, and which is a project that is kind of like the, how would I say, the hallmark, the most important product that we've created, and it's something that really is easy that anybody can use to radically change their community. And all you need to do is get 100 people to join it in your city and make an offer, and that is enough to actually kickstart a change. And so we may talk about that a little bit. Sure. But Colin has also he wrote the book F Day. He wrote a book. I think it's Open Access Economy, right?
Yeah, Into the Open Economy. Yeah.
Oh, Into the Open Economy. And he also was one of the first projects that he did was the Free World Charter, and that was an excellent webpage that kind of outlined the values that we all shared, and the idea was to get a lot of people to sign on to it, and it was translated into so many different languages, and that was really impressive. And since then you haven't stopped, so it's really great to be able to work with you.
Yeah, thanks, Mark, and likewise. Yeah, I'm not sure if any of your listeners are aware, but you are somebody who I admire for working tirelessly in the background for trying to connect people and trying to make these movements work and to try and create solutions that people can latch onto. So very much appreciate you for that. Maybe not as many people would know you as they would know me, but they would certainly be. The amount of work that you actually carry out is insane. It's incredible, and I really admire you for that. So thanks a lot for that. So just a brief history of Sharebay. I came down from looking at the Zeitgeist Movement and the Venus Project in about 2009. And these were all kind of movements that were proposing a post-money economy. And my version of that was creating this Free World Charter, which was like a sort of distilling the values of post-money and a more compassionate society. And over the years, since that was very successful, and but over the years, I started to feel like that we needed to do more than just provide a place for people to demonstrate their support. We need to actually start building this damn thing, instead of just talking about it. So that led me at first off into sort of creating the open access economy wiki, which is I know that you've contributed to that, and that was I think that's a very important aspect of this work because it kind of defines the idea of post-money society maybe better, in my view, than say the Zeitgeist Movement or the Venus Project is. Do. And I think one of the features of the open access economy idea is exactly aligning with the title of your podcast, which is human needs. And that is, let's meet human needs however we do that, regardless of what it takes to do that. Let that be the first major concern of society, is let's meet the needs of society. And once you like decide that, okay, well, that should be the main goal of society, well then, I mean, it's figuring out how to do that is secondary. So with the open access economy idea, obviously nothing is behind a paywall, in terms of your necessities. And I stress that this is not about providing everyone with flying cars or with yachts. This is about providing people their necessities, because that's where we got to start from. Now, maybe someday in years to come, we can give everyone flying cars and yachts, but I think that we have to start with the basic necessities. Society has to take care of itself. And the way to do that then in the open access economy idea is through sharing goods and services and through volunteering and sharing knowledge with others, etc., etc. So if we as a society can start doing that better, then maybe we can move beyond money. But first we got to do the simple stuff. We got to do it in a small way. And Sharebay is really sharebay.org is like the expression of that small way of doing things. So what we have at the moment is we have a global network of just over 5,000 members. And the people who are gifting goods and services freely with each other from all different places. And that's really, I think, it's the thin end of the wedge to make this kind of society like that. I mean, Sharebay is not big enough now to make a dent in the world economy by a long way. That's not going to happen. But if we persist with that, if these sort of sharing resource movements grow and grow, as I hope they will, then we start literally attacking the idea of trade as the only way to do things. Because as we all know, trade is not the only way to do things. We can share goods and services freely. And if we do that, then we are now able to meet the human needs of society. It's not possible to do that with a paywall at the moment. A lot of people, so many people arguing against capitalism nowadays, but capitalism really is just the final expression of trade. If you have a community trading society, it will always end up as capitalism. Then that's guaranteed. There's no exception to that rule. So people who are saying, well, let's end capitalism, and then you say, well, does that mean you want to stop trading? They say, no, I don't want to stop trading. I want to end capitalism. And people think capitalism is, fat billionaires, guys wearing top hats and people who are exploiting others. And while that does happen, that's not what creates capitalism. What creates capitalism is people trading. If you put enough people trading together, it's mathematically proven that it's certain that a few people are going to start owning all the wealth in that society.
You modeled that, right? You did a model for that.
Yeah, I mean, there's been like lots of work done on this with a guy called Bruce Boghosian, is a professor in at Tufts University in Boston.
You interviewed him on your podcast as well, right?
I interviewed him, yeah, and his paper basically proves that if you take a bunch of people just completely randomly trading, then you will end up with a few people hoarding all the wealth. That's just statistically inevitable. So the idea that, you know, some people in society get super wealthy because they're super successful and they're really hardworking. I mean, most of this is bullshit, because there's the mathematics of a bunch of people trading actually creates winners and creates a lot of losers. That's not even up for debate. It's the mathematics is there. Maths is good on that. I created sort of a model on that as well. There's like one of these, what do they call these things? Statistical models or computer
it was
model.
cool. It was this little video, right? And you see these drops going up and drops going down. And then in the end, it was just like one person on top and everybody in the bottom, right?
That's just and I mean, and these were all little random acts of trade. You give all these little agents in the model. You give them all like $100 each, whatever, and then you set them all off to randomly trade with each other. And yeah, sure enough, after a while, you have one guy with nearly all of it, and everyone else with less. You know, and a few people kind of sort of floating in the middle, but really most people at the bottom and one guy at the top. That's inevitable, and most people don't realize that, you know, that. So it's very easy to blame capitalism on capitalists. You know, for example, you know, you see like the likes of, you know, Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, and we say, you know, well, fuck these guys, you know, these capitalist guys, but really they're just
playing the game.
Random winners in a random game. Really, I mean, that's really it, you know, and. Also, I'm always trying to stress with people that, you know, Jeff Bezos is the way he is, but what would you be like if you were, you know, also fortunate enough to have whatever 100, 200 billion,
right?
You know, with some sort of fortune. I mean, how would you behave? How would you behave any differently? And I honestly believe that most people would pretty much behave the same, you know.
Right.
So we have to get away from this idea that capitalists are evil people, because it's really quite primitive. You know, we have to think about society at large, how people work together, and how all this substrate of trading creates these big winners in society. So it's not what those guys are doing; it's what we're all doing down here. That's what actually creates that, and it's pretty much counterintuitive for people to realize that.
It's funny because it's kind of like a mix between the general ideas of the right with the general ideas of the left. Like, you know, like on the right, it's a lot of personal responsibility that people talk about, and I think that's great. It's one of the things I like about, you know, people that are generally considered conservative, like Jordan Peterson, things like that. But even like the what Margaret Thatcher is like famous of, like saying there is no society, it's just individual people doing things. But what we're saying is kind of like, well, it's individual people doing things that have to change the system, right? And it's interesting because the ideas of caring for everybody are often associated with the left for some reason. I don't know. I actually sometimes I do my best not to use those terms, but it's hard to talk about. Like there are different camps kind of in general, you know, philosophy. So there's like, you know, socialist general ideas, right? And then there are like the opposite, that would be like the capitalist ideas, right? And where inequality actually fuels productivity and, you know, things like that. And it's funny how we kind of don't fall in either camp because we kind of blend these. There are ideas on both sides that are true, that are very important, right? And it's important to remember them and to keep them in mind, such as that we are as individuals are the ones that with our actions are we're the only leverage we have to change the system. So people talk about this system, but what is this system? And how can we change it? Well, we can change it with what we do. And so these little actions that seem little, like participating in sharebay.org, sharing with our neighbors, and most importantly, getting other people to join, that is really how we make the change. And it's, Yeah, and it's really great to be a part of that with you.
Yeah, I mean, just on the subject of the left and the right wing, I mean, it's so much. I know it seems comical to me, but it's just so much of mainstream conversation is consumed with this idea
Yeah,
of, are you
terms.
left or are you right?
Right,
Are you with team A or are you with
right.
team B? I mean, that's really that it goes, and unfortunately, it's probably a little bit of a weakness of the human psyche that we're driven to select one team over another. You know, I think
Uh-huh.
it's just, it's like every single story in human culture has like good guys and bad guys. You know,
What?
you got a
Yeah.
protagonist, you got an antagonist. That's always the way, and I think that's Hollywood culture really exaggerates that as well. There's always the good looking guy and there's always the evil nasty
Right.
antagonist, and that's kind of it's I suppose it's a cycle. It kind of preys on the human psyche. It's probably something that's inbuilt in us anyway, and it's something
Yes.
that's amplified. But I think the left and right thing just totally feeds into that debate. I mean, it really is,
Absolutely.
because
Absolutely.
if you're a left, then the left guys are good. If they're right, then the right guys are good. But as you correctly say, I mean, there's absolutely valid points on both sides of that political spectrum. And so,
Hmm.
why on earth should we have to choose one group, a bunch of ideas over another? It's just insane, really. Of course, looking after society, looking after vulnerable people is important. But of course, personal security and personal safety are also important. So, I mean, it's the left-right thing really shouldn't exist. We should have, sort of. I wish that all the right ideas were contained in one set, and then we could have another opposite set of everyone who
Bad
disagrees
ideas.
with that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Then it'll be pretty obvious to see, well, actually, there are good guys and bad guys here. But yeah. Yeah, just on Sharebay, joining Sharebay, one of the things, like, I mean, I talk a lot about trying to get people to go into Sharebay, because I say, well, the more we're sharing goods and services, the more we're taking away from the trading model, which feeds into the capitalist paradigm. And of course, the people say to me, well, look, people sharing, a cup and saucer or whatever is not going to change the world. And that's like, it just fucking misses the point
Right.
completely, because what we're doing, every small act of trade that we're doing is feeding into that system. And what people don't realize is that it's not the size of the act, it's the fact that you do it, and it's the fact that you try and get more people to do it. Because
Yes.
one person doing a small action doesn't change the world hardly at all. But a
Hmm.
lot of people doing it, a million people doing it, a billion people doing it, you're already changing the world. So that's why I would say to people, if you're interested in trying to move beyond capitalism, then you got to think about moving beyond trade, and the way to do that is to start sharing goods and services with other people. So that way we can lift up the more vulnerable in society, help other people out, feel good about ourselves doing that, and also be changing the world in the process. So that's pretty much my methodology anyway, or where I'm at with it. Sharebay at the moment has about 5,000 members worldwide. I wish it was a lot more, but it's still quite a decent number of people, and a lot of people sharing goods and services on there now at the moment. But for me, that's where we begin. That's where
Right.
this whole thing begins.
Yeah. And it really is like, so, as you know, for a while, I was working on trying to get people to just use any sort of altruistic network. And what I found over the years is it's just so much easier, to get people to do one thing. Like when I go to give a talk or something, it's like, okay, I can give a great talk, and it's all about getting people to join sharebay.org. But if I don't stop the talk and say, okay, everyone take your phone out and
Mm.
and
Okay.
and download it and start working on it and get your account, that people don't do it. It's amazing how you really need to give people like a very simple thing. And so I looked at all of them. So even though from the very beginning I've been, contributing, co-founding Sharebay.org, I was thinking about, okay, well, if I do focus on one, it does make sense to focus on Sharebay.org because, I've been helping to build it, but I wanted to make sure, so I checked all the others that I could find, and really, Sharebay.org is really the most powerful. It really can allow for all of the different types of sharing and gift economy transactions globally and locally, and so it really is the best tool, and it's amazing how easy, like, you just have to get enough people in your community to join it, and then it will start working, because you need to have that like the critical mass for it to really start taking off. And so there's that initial push, but anybody can do it, really. Anybody can do it. They just have to put their mind to it and start getting people to join. And and it's something that it's funny because but now, I mean, like our project that we're working on in Lagos, right? So I think that is likely going to work. I think we can succeed even though neither of us are there. So for those who are listening, one of the projects that Colin and I are working on now is to kickstart Sharebay.org in Lagos, Nigeria, and we were able to get a couple $1,000s of donations to be able to do this. Thanks to Farcaster, a shout out to Warpcast and DGen. And so now we have a couple volunteers as well that have signed up to be there in person and help. And this is exciting. I really think that they will succeed in doing that in the University of Lagos. So the idea, so what we'll do is, this was their idea actually, to kickstart it at the university, and then that will, when it succeeds, that university is like an example for the rest of the country. And so they're convinced that if we get it to work at Lagos, it will then be replicated in all the other universities of Nigeria. So that's exciting.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, it was something that was suggested to me before, was the idea that students in universities could really benefit from using an app like Sharebay for securing books and accommodation and transport and stuff like that. So and really excited about that happening in Lagos. Yeah, and that probably is going to start in September, I think, isn't it? September or October. We're going to start working on that. And it's really great. We have a couple of great volunteers there who are going to help us with that. And maybe if we have a good success there, we have a model to bring to other universities as well. And it's a great way. Don't forget that Facebook initial success all came from universities as well. It started in universities too. So it's a good way to start. Humans, students are open-minded and they're more progressive than regular folks, shall we say? So it's a good place to start. You were mentioning about Sharebay. One of the there are anyone who's been in this space knows probably about sites like FreeCycle or the Buy Nothing movement. These are all kind of like sharing groups as well, and they're all really, really doing great work. But one of the things that I wanted to put into Sharebay specifically was the idea of tracking transactions. So you actually know what's happened. All the other sites like FreeCycle or Trash Nothing or Buy Nothing group, they all if you see something that you want, you just basically message the person directly and you get the thing, and that's great. But there's no record of anything ever happening there, no transaction taking place. As like there would be if you bought something from Amazon or from eBay, there's always like a record of the transaction that happened. So one of the exciting things about Sharebay is that it does track all those transactions, and then we can actually learn by what people are actually sharing. You can see who shared what. There is actually a public record of the sharing as well. So you can. It's very important, I think, for people like you and I, Mark, to be able to draw on that resource of the transaction record to say, well, look, here is what's happening, and you can show it to people that it's not just a lot of private messages going on, that there actually are transactions happening, and here's the actual evidence of that. And I think that's very important, because at this stage of what we're trying to do, it's really important that we prove to people that it works, that it is working, and that it works. And so if you have the hard evidence of that, then that's great. It really helps.
Absolutely.
The other thing mentioned about Sharebay is that even though local groups is obviously a great idea, it's not limited to that. You can actually get things at distance. A lot of people do. You can ask somebody to send you an item, for example, and you can offer to pay them to cover the shipping costs. That's something that a few people have done, and so it's not just limited by local areas. So it's kind of like equally local and global, I suppose, the best way to put it. And of course, a lot of people are sharing services as well that don't need to be. There's no physical item at all. It's like somebody's offering to do proofreading or translating or something like that. That can be done anywhere in the world. So that's good. Yeah, obviously great to get people locally on board, but it's not limited by locals, so we can have the best of both worlds.
Yeah, so the reason why I recommend people working locally is because so I was very successful. My wife, we tried getting people to join sharebay.org, and in the beginning it was because you need to learn how to use the website and stuff. We were having that challenge, and so we created WhatsApp groups, and that was her idea, and they worked fantastically well, and they still are. But there's still, there are hundreds of people that are using them, but they've reached their limit now, right? And so that's why I've realized that it really helps when people are like close enough to be able to transfer the items, especially for the sharing part, because that's one of the things that is exceptional about sharebay.org is that it enables sharing items as well. So people can set up like tool libraries with it extremely easily without having to have a place to keep the tools or the items, right? People can just, and people can even ask for them. Like you don't have to necessarily get everyone to offer as well. And so that type of behavior, I found it works very, very well and fluid when people are close by. And then once people are on it, then they find that there's, people all over the world with which they can find and share products and services globally.
Yes. Yeah, and of course, with you can specify your skills and your interests on Sharebase, so you actually get targeted things to your feed, things that the algorithm figures that you would be interested in. So that's very important too. That's something you can't get in a WhatsApp group. I understand the WhatsApp groups are very successful because it's instant, it's immediate. I got this thing, who wants it? That stuff. But it's not ideal when you have a lot of people, because eventually people just switch off the notifications. There's too much stuff, or people start chatting on it about other things, and then the people lose interest. So. Sharebay is pretty much more like an inventory site like Amazon or eBay, but of course, everything is freely shared.
What is good though about the experiment that we did, it was that as like a test run, it showed that this type of gifting and sharing behavior works very well, and I think that it's important for people to see that, because often when we a lot of people have started to ask me about sharebay.org because I'm getting quite a bit of views in Farcaster, and people have been wanting to meet up. And typically, people, this probably happens to you all the time. They're like, well, maybe there could be an option for selling stuff or trading too, and or people are like, oh, but people may want something in return, or it'll be hard to get them to just gift. And because we have these local groups that work extremely well. I know that works really well. Like, people are willing to gift tons of items and share tons of items once they've experienced it, once they've seen that it works, once they see that there's like enough people doing it, and they kind of grow into it. But it really does work. It really does work. So we don't need to like theorize about how to make it work. Like, you just need to get people to join, really.
Yeah, and I mean that's the harder part. Of course, it's very easy to make videos and write books about what the ideal world should look like. It's really easy. I mean, and I've done it myself, but it's very, very hard to actually make it happen, to make it work. And that's the challenge that we've set ourselves, that I've set myself, and that you've set yourself. Let's enough of the talking. Let's put it into action. And yeah, that's really tough. But of course, it's like anything else. It's just really, really hard at first, but it gets easier. The more people get on board, the more momentum happens. The more things start to happen by themselves. It's great. It's just like pushing a big rock. You know, it's really, really hard to push it at first, but once you start getting that first bit of movement, then it gets easier. So I'm really happy with the way it's going, and I know we're working very, very hard in the background. You are, and I am, to get this thing going. So let's just keep going and bring it on.
Yeah, I highly recommend people, like a lot of people also in the activism world, they feel frustrated because they're not getting, like, they don't see results of the work that they're doing. And that's because they're not doing the right work. And so, you know, hopefully they will try, but it's really hard to convince people without, like you said, like without the numbers. Like, the numbers really help to show people, hey, like it works. Like, you just have to, like, you have to get enough people to start using it. And I recommend, you know, getting in, you know, like 100 people in your community, and that will be enough. That's a challenge, but you can do it, right? But what's amazing is that it really does work. Like, once you've got that, once, you know, you can see how it improves people's lives, and people start to really, like, you become like kind of like a local hero. And once you see that you're making progress, that's like in real life, that's actual factual progress. It's not like you don't feel the despair anymore, because you realize, okay, well, you know, we're moving towards the right direction. Sure, there's still, you know, 7 billion people to onboard here, but now we have 500 people. Then next year we have 1,000 people, and the year after we have 1,500 people, and you know, you feel that, you see that it's actual, like, what you have is real, like the progress is tangible, and that really makes a difference on.
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize that the progress is very, very small, but it is real, and that's really important distinction, because it's very easy to make videos and to sell books and have like millions of fans and millions of viewers, but it's not really progress. It's not actually the idea in action. Okay, right. It's just the idea only. But putting the idea in action, even if only with small successes, is really, really important, because we have to start with small successes. That's the only way we get towards big successes, right? So yeah, I'm really, really happy that the progress is, that it's still moving in the right direction, and I've committed myself to being persistent with it, because I know that Sharebay is a hard slog, and it's a hard sell in this high moving trading world. It's a damn hard thing to sell sometimes, but it's what we have to do is we have to persist with it. We have to just keep applying pressure, keep going with it. So this is why I've more or less committed myself that this is a 10-year project for me. I'm not going to let up. I'm not going to stop it until at least 10 years. If there's still nothing going on in 10 years, I'll say, okay, maybe this is not going to work. It's not going to change the world. But this is, you know, we don't have huge resources like money and stuff to advertise and promote the things. So it's everything it's really done by by sheer hard work and effort of people like you and I and the other people on the site. So it's a tough sell, it's tough work, but I'm committed to doing it. I know you are too. So we're just going to keep putting our shoulder to the rock and keep pushing until we get some movement.
It's funny how. So one of the ways that we're working now is this idea of the human needs. Are you still recording podcasts? You did for a while, and they were really great.
No, I made videos for a while. I did it like for a few months. I was doing a weekly video about 2 or 3 years ago. No, I stopped doing it. It just became too much work. It was too intensive for me, so I stopped it basically. But there's still, those videos are still there. If you look at my YouTube channel, Colin R Turner, you'll find it. That one on the modeling of capitalism is there. People might like that. That's like been a very popular video. A lot of people have had their eyes opened with that video, I have to say, and me too. I think it's very important that people understand that capitalism is not what they think it is. It's basically the inevitable consequence of lots of people trading. That's all. It's not evil capitalists. It's not Bill Gates. It's not Elon Musk. It's not it's not Monopoly. Not the guy in Monopoly board. It's basically just an absolute product of lots of people trading.
Yeah, that's funny because I don't even. I try not to use the word, like we were talking about earlier, to not use the words right and left. I try not to use the word capitalist or socialist anymore either, because it kind of like, so if you criticize capitalism, right, automatically you're labeled as the left, right? So it's kind of similar, right? And if you,
but people say
right?
If you say capitalism is bad, people say, well, socialism never worked. It's a ridiculous argument. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's ridiculous to be blaming capitalism in the first place, and it's ridiculous to think that socialism ever actually really existed. So it's just a pointless argument, and a lot of that stuff, that online toing and froing is just waste of time, really.
Right.
So,
It's all semantics in the end, and people have like different, right? Everybody has a different understanding of what the word capitalism mean or what the word socialism means. And so it doesn't really help to use those words, because no one understands what you're saying, really. And they just put you in this weird camp. And
Yep. But when you talk about human needs, as you're talking about in the podcast, then okay, well, there's no way you can disagree with that. There's no way you can misinterpret it. There's no way you can misunderstand that. It's a solid concept. We're all human. We all have needs. So we're talking about meeting those needs is something that no one can really deny. So that's good.
And it's really amazing because most people don't realize that we have emotional needs, right? So that's something that I find is really amazing, because so when people talk, like in general, when people talk about human needs, they're like, okay, food, shelter, warmth, dry place, and they're like, okay, that's it. But there's been like 100 years of science or more that has demonstrated that emotional needs are as physiological, as necessary for the proper human functioning and development as are physical needs. And this, I think, it really changes the way we see things, because so like the way, basically, once people understand that any human being will either be a benefit to society, any human being can be a benefit to society if they have all their needs met. They will be, or practically everybody, right? There are like very few exceptions, and so that's a tangent to talk about criminal behavior and how to deal with criminal behavior, right? But what is absolutely true is that any human being that doesn't have their fundamental emotional and physical needs, but everybody understands the physical needs, but the emotional needs met, anyone who doesn't have those needs met will develop pathologies. And what that means is that they will become sick, either mentally or physically. And that means that they will become either a burden or a danger to everyone else. And so it makes it obvious that we want to meet everybody's needs then, because if not, they're going to become either a burden or a danger, right? I mean, even for selfish, like, what is it called? Enlightened selfishness or something, or I was watching a podcast the other day about that, about the person who came up with that term. I highly recommend everyone to check it out. David Sloan Wilson. He's kind of like my alter ego. I want to have him on the show soon, hopefully, because he also has a foundation called Pro-Social World, and he's an academic. He's done excellent science on evolution, and they talk about that. And so the idea, but it becomes obviously even for any individual, even for selfish reasons, doesn't want the people around them to be a burden or a danger. Like it just becomes really clear, and the science for that is obvious. And so because it can be, we can determine objectively what human needs are, right? We can all get on the same page and be like, okay, yeah, people need affection, they need freedom, they need participation, they need creation, they need idleness. Why? Because we found that if they don't have these things, they will become a burden or a danger. They will develop a pathology, either a mental pathology and become depressed, suicidal, criminal, or physical pathology, because it actually does go hand in hand. So physical pathologies, all sorts of diseases, heart disease, all physical diseases are also very much associated with stress. Stress elevates all of these diseases, and stress is like the first symptom when someone's emotional needs aren't being satisfied. And so it becomes possible. Let's say that it's something that is absolutely possible for everybody to get on board with as a shared goal, without having to get into politics, without having to talk about capitalism or talk about socialism.
Absolutely, yeah. And as you point out, there is a very good scientific basis for meeting human needs, both emotional and physical. But of course, there's just the obvious moral imperative as well, that it's we are fundamentally compassionate beings. We are all generally kind with people who are close to us. So we do have compassion, but we should learn more to extend that compassion beyond just ourselves and our close family, and to feel responsible for the greater world and for other people that mean nothing to us. I think we need to develop that moral imperative better, because that will make us happier as well as human beings. And one of the weird things about helping people is that it actually helps you to help yourself. A lot of people who are struggling mentally, who maybe have mental illness, is one of the great things that really helps them is actually give them something to do, make them responsible for someone else, make them help somebody else in a really good way. And that actually helps people with those problems more so than actually, trying to help them directly, because you're giving them you're giving them back their pride, back their sense of responsibility. And that's really what people need. People need to feel empowered. They need to feel valuable in society. So, there's so many good reasons just for helping us to see about this problem of meeting human needs. And as we said at the beginning, that it's absolutely insane that we as a society don't enshrine human needs as the number one goal of society.
Right.
I mean, it's just not. I mean, of course, we're just bamboozled with, the advertising of, private sector advertising trying to get us to buy shit. And then on the other hand, we have government waving flags saying, well, you got to be patriotic, you got to do this, you got to, it's all bullshit. It's all people just, we're still so subject to that influence, the propaganda influence of government and of private companies trying to sell us stuff, that we think those things are important. We think it's important to be a good American. It's important to be to have the latest car, to buy a Tesla car or whatever. We fundamentally believe those things are important, but they are not important. They are not important. Yeah. They're not going to make you happier, and it doesn't make society better, and it doesn't make the planet better. So we need a hard reset on our values system. And I think starting to share goods and services is one way to start retraining ourselves to actually what's more important to help ourselves, to help the world, and to help the planet at large. So.
Yeah. Yes. So the way I like to see it is that, so there's the theory and there's the practice, right? And the practice, we understand it thanks to the theory, but the theory without the practice, there's no embodiment. And so we don't really understand the theory without the practice as well. And it really, it's how it becomes a reality in our lives, is when we start to share and gift with the people around us, with other people. It's that it's a whole different way of seeing the world, and it's a whole different way of experiencing our relationships. And it's a transcendental experience. Absolutely. And everyone what I've found is that, so people that I've been like talking about these ideas for years, and they didn't get it, right? But then they were sick, and I lent them something. Like, actually, our first member, he had he had a sore throat, and I lent him a vaporizer thing. It's like a little machine that vaporizes saline water, and you put it on. It's a mask, and you breathe it. He didn't even use it, but the fact that, like, the experience of borrowing something that was going to help him, he became our first member, right? And it that experience really, really transforms someone. Mm-hmm. Both the gifting and the sharing and the receiving.
Sure.
And it's really important for people to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is value in gifting as well, and not just receiving. We're sort of kind of trained to think, well, it's good to get things. It's great to get things, like it's Christmas, it's fucking Christmas, it's good to get things. But it actually, giving something of yourself to other people, helping someone else when they mean nothing to you, and when you're getting nothing in return, it actually has a real strong value of self-worth to you, when you do those things, and I think most people don't really even explore that feeling of increased self-worth when you're actually giving of yourself and expecting nothing in return. So we got a lot of retraining to do. So Sharebay is the training wheels, hopefully, and we can keep going, kickstart something completely different from there.
Okay, well then we'll call it a show. Thanks, Colin.
No problem. Really pleasure talking to you, Mark, as usual, as always. I hope to be on the show again, maybe with some more news of progress. As you know, you and I are talking as well about maybe creating something that goes beyond Sharebay, that can be extended to other websites as well. That's something that we're working on. Maybe we'll talk about that in the next show. Lots of things going on in the background. So thank you again for all your efforts, as always. It's really, really appreciated.
Thank you too, Colin. And sorry if we went a little longer than expected.
It's no problem at all. No problem at all. It was a pleasure, Mark. Thanks very much.
Okay. Enjoy a shared world.
Bye. See you.